the summer of 1955, 14-year-old Emmett Till traveled from his hometown of Chicago to visit family in Mississippi. There he was accused of whistling at a white woman, and for that supposed infraction, he was dragged from his family's home, brutally tortured, murdered, and discarded like trash. In many ways, Till's story was more ordinary than exceptional because under Jim Crow's lynch law, African Americans had been murdered without consequence for decades. What made Till's murder unique was the decision to publish the photographs of his mangled body. Till's mother did something so courageous that it still inspires awe. She held an open casket funeral for her son and allowed Jet magazine to publish photographs of his brutalized body. There was controversy at the time about her decision and Jet's decision to publish the pictures, but those photographs of the mutilated boy galvanized a nascent movement for equal rights and launched the contemporary civil rights movement. Jet magazine reported continuously on the case for years afterward. I'm telling you this story today because Jet magazine is again shining a much-needed spotlight on the killing of a young black boy whose name might otherwise be forgotten. Jordan Davis, the 17-year-old who was shot to death the night after Thanksgiving at the Jacksonville, Florida gas station by a motorist who complained about loud music Jordan and his friends were playing in their parked SUV. That motorist, Michael Dunn, fired at least 8 shots into the SUV, striking Jordan twice and killing him. Dunn now faces first-degree murder charges and may claim protection under Florida's Stand Your Ground law. Jet magazine's January 14th edition cover story on Jordan's killing explores not only the details of the night that took his life, but introduces us to a 17-year-old who loved to fish with his dad, aspired to be a Marine, and was about to start his first job, and is now gone. Back with me at our NYU journalism professor Faraj Judea, radio host Mark Steiner, Alicia Menendez of HuffPost Live, and the Grio's Joy Reid. But first, let's go to Chicago to talk to Jet Magazine editor-in-chief Mitzi Miller. Hi, Mitzi. Nice to see you this morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm great. Mitzi, talk to me. I led here with the Emmett Till discussion. Why did Jet decide to lead with the Jordan Davis case as your cover for the beginning of 2013?
You know, I think most people understand at this point that conventional publishing wisdom says that you need a celebrity to kind of kick off the year on an up note. However, when I heard the details about the Jordan Davis case back in November, I knew it was important, and I knew that we couldn't afford to not be moved to action about it. It was months after Trayvon. You know, people were angry and have come to action behind Trayvon, but with the holidays rolling around, it's easy to forget because you want to feel good. And I don't think that as a community, we can afford to forget. I think we have to stay active. We have to stay aware. Black children are being killed, especially in Florida. And we need to keep raising our voices. And it's Jet's job, and has been historically, to make sure that our community is informed and active.
So, Mitzi, I want to ask you about exactly that, because I know there are some viewers who may not get sort of how central Jet is to many African-American communities in terms of being an information source. I mean, my grandmother's, coffee table always had it. Any barbershop and beauty salon always has Jet. But there's also been, I think, some critique over the years that, like, Beauty of the Week is the most familiar aspect to black readers, and that some of the civil rights history of Jet, right? I know, but it is. We want to see what she does. She likes to walk on the beach, right? But is this a turning point to get back to the civil rights history?
I think that it's definitely a turning point. We're definitely trying to do more to balance the entertainment and the important news reporting. We've been doing that ever since I started it about 2 years ago. We've been working to find that delicate balance, making sure that we're informing with current news, things that are relevant to our community, and providing the service, because that's what's so important about Jet. They don't just inform, they let our readers know how to use the information. So that's another reason that Jordan is on the cover, because again, like I said, we need to be active about this situation. We need to be active about Jordan. We need to be active about this law. We need to be active about gun control. We need to stay in motion.
Mitzi, I'm going to come out to my table a little bit here because, Farai, I want to ask you about this. As I was thinking about sort of Jet's role and historically and at this moment, there's been a lot of hand-wringing over the past couple of years about the idea of the loss of good old-fashioned journalism that doesn't take a position, the idea that shows like this and others where you have someone sitting behind the desk who has a clear point of view, that it is problematic. But when I'm reminded of Jet 1955 or even Jet in this moment, it feels like this is actually a very long tradition for a lot of media to take a position on issues of social justice.
Absolutely, and I would go all the way back to the days of the Founding Fathers. You know, the media that America was built on was actually partisan media, not nonpartisan media. And I'm not making a judgment as to whether there should be one or the other, but I think that there has been a long tradition of both, because when America was started and we were a cauldron of, you know, nascent freedoms as well as inequalities, people laid out their positions in abolitionist newspapers, you know, different types of newspapers. And so when we talk about media that addresses specific social issues, including in the African American context, this is a very important part of how ideas get surfaced. And what I'd like to see now is a bridge between Newtown, Connecticut and Florida and Stand Your Ground. We need to realize that gun violence is inclusive of people of many different racial and economic backgrounds, and that we have a shared incentive in this country to link the tragedies that we are seeing and to begin to question gun laws on a larger systemic level.
And Mark, it feels like that's exactly what progressive media is constantly trying to do. Take the kind of sensational story like Newtown, which deserved every moment of coverage that it got, but also say, what about all of these missing pieces?
And there are all the missing pieces. Let me start one quick place and come right to that point. That when you talk about modern media, remember Edward R. Murrow and Harvest of Shame. This is what we call objective media. But he made this documentary to say, look what's happening to farm workers in America. And it was the black reporters in the segregated newspapers in this country in the 50s and 60s that said no to segregation and forced the major media to come in. So media has always been part of the fight for social justice. This is nothing new. And I think we do have to link the stories. I think that what the things that happens is this horrible thing that happened in Newtown. But people forget the hundreds of young people who were killed in the streets of Chicago over the last 5 years, who are mostly African American and Mexican children. And what happens in Baltimore, 212 murders in a city of 600,000 people, where both Farai and I come from. Which is just unacceptable. So we do have to link things up. People do care. We have to figure out ways that you bridge this historical gap between people wanting their guns and gun control, which we can do. If you study American history, you see the roots of it, and you can figure out how to make the future.
Mitzi, let me ask you this one last question before we head off to commercial here. Is this, if I'm a Jet reader, and I see this cover, is this a call to action for me as a Jet reader?
Absolutely. This is important. It's our job at Jet to inform this community about what they need to have front of mind. So this is a case that people need to be talking about as much as they talked about the Trayvon case, as much as they talked about the situation in Newton. This is important. Gun control is important. Jordan has become the face of our community's for me, I think he's the new face, alongside Trayvon, of our community's rallying to action and feeling like we should be part of it too. I think, unfortunately, a lot of times we sit back and be like, oh, you know, the guns are what they are. No, we need to come forward. We need to take responsibility. We need to demand safety where we live as well.
Thank you to Mitzi Miller in Chicago. When we come back, we're going to stay on this topic. And we're going to stay in Chicago because yesterday was all kinds of bizarreness in the Windy City. The news, the statement, the follow-up, $4.99, $500, all of that next.